Good day, everybody. It's August 4th, 2026. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada for Reason to Resist. And we're joined for the first time in a while by our good friend Laith Marouf, Executive Director of Free Palestine TV based in Beirut and geopolitical analyst extraordinaire. Thank you very much for joining us today, Laith.
Great to be with you, Dimitri.
So, Laith, you were recently in Spain, which is suddenly at the eye of the storm. I hope that didn't have anything to do with your visit, but I do want to talk to you about the extraordinary developments in Ceuta. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I'm embarrassed to say that before the events of the last couple of weeks, I didn't even know that the Spaniards had a chunk of territory on the African side of the Strait of Gibraltar, which was a bit of a surprise. In any case, many of us will have seen by now the images of tens of thousands of migrants pouring into this enclave. I believe it's now been acknowledged that dozens of them died trying to swim there, and there has been a lot of speculation about whether the Moroccan government is behind this sudden surge of desperate migrants into Ceuta. Now, before I ask you about that, I just want to inquire about the King of Morocco. I saw circulating on the social media the last few days a brief video of what appears to be the king in a drunken stupor in Paris back in 2022. He does look rather tipsy. And that does indeed look like the king. In any case, whether it is or isn't the king, Laith, could you tell us about the background of this character?
Well, obviously there's other pictures of the king wearing T-shirt with a huge marijuana leaf with what looks like one of the prostitutes as he's going on his vacation. Much of the Arabic monarchs, quote unquote, that have been kept in power through direct imperial intervention since the end of World War II, and these monarchs are the ones that survived the wave of Arabic unification and decolonization in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And thus, clearly, these are illegitimate monarchs, and they are, the only way that they are maintained in power is through direct intervention of these imperialists. Look at what's happening in the Gulf countries right now, in a place like Bahrain, where the royal family, quote unquote, has a special force, United Kingdom Special Force detachment always around them to protect them. These are the guards of the royal family there. And you can think about it probably the same way. Remember, this king, his father was the one responsible for taking an actual head tax, $50 per Jewish Moroccan, that he would expel to Palestine. The only way that the Zionist colony or the Jewish colony actually came to be, because there was so little immigration or settlement colonialism coming from Europe, that it didn't have enough of a body weight to create a colony. They needed the expulsion of the two major Jewish Arabic populations, the Jewish Moroccan population and the Jewish Iraqi population. And those two kings that were brought into power in Iraq at the time and in Morocco by the direct imperialist intervention took money, literally $50 per Jewish Iraqi or Jewish Moroccan that is expelled towards Palestine in the 1940s and 50s, late 40s and 50s. So we're seeing a regime that is 100% aligned with the colonization of Palestine, that is also plays a role in destabilizing Algeria and Mauritania and Mali, and of course at this moment makes the Spanish government, or pay a price for its measly words in opposition to the genocide in Palestine.
So let's turn then to what's happened over the past couple of weeks. And just to orient people, I'm going to put up on the screen a map, a detail of the Strait of Gibraltar. And you can see in the sort of center on the right, the enclave of Ceuta. Again, I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly. In any event, this is an extremely important maritime corridor. Huge amounts of commercial shipping pass through the Strait of Gibraltar. And given what is happening, of course, in the Red Sea, which is that Ansar Allah has imposed a blockade on Saudi oil, Saudi tankers are now rerouting, from the Saudi port of Yanbu through the Suez Canal, and they're going through the Strait of Gibraltar. This is a very recent development within the last couple of weeks, and all around Africa to reach destinations in Southeast Asia, export destinations. And we're obviously dealing in a time at which freedom of navigation is under massive assault, not by the official enemies of Washington, but by Washington itself and its vassals in Europe. And why don't you start just by giving us your overall views about what has happened here? What do you think is going on? And in particular, do you think this is related in any way, shape, or form to control over the Strait of Gibraltar?
Look at it. This map that you have right now in front of us shows you clearly that Spain has 100% control of the waters, its territorial waters, from Ceuta to meet with its territorial waters from what is there called the Park Natural del Estrecho. Okay, so in fact, Spain can achieve what Iran did or what Yemen is beginning to do without having to consult with anyone. And Morocco, its own territorial waters end at the border of Ceuta, so it doesn't have an entrance into the Mediterranean and begin in the south of Ceuta again. So, and this is a question that must be put for the activists, the revolutionaries in Spain. You made a joke in the beginning that maybe this is related to my presence. But truly, when I was there in Spain, and every activist and revolutionary I spoke to, I pointed exactly to this, that Spain and the Spanish people can blockade the Strait of Gibraltar for not only trade with the Jewish colony, but also the entrance of any military, naval forces that are not of countries that are on the Mediterranean, meaning blockading the entry of the United States naval force. And this Spain can do without having to consult with anybody because of the fact that these territorial waters stretch on both sides of the Strait of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I was telling these activists is that, if your government is just all talk, and it is all talk, by the way, the government of the Prime Minister of Spain continues to purchase Israeli weapons, is I think the third or the fourth largest purchaser of Israeli weapons. There is a mine, and the documentary is going to come out soon on Free Palestine TV. There's a mine just outside Barcelona that is producing the vast majority of the white phosphorus that is being used on Palestine and in South Lebanon. And there's many, many, many other connections that are continuing under the current Prime Minister's reign. So if the government's not going to do anything, all those people that were involved in the Gaza flotilla, specifically the Spanish people that were involved in this, they have a chance to mount their own flotilla in the waters of Gibraltar, in the Spanish territorial waters of Gibraltar, without having to speak to any government or their own as citizens, as normal citizens that are getting on their boats, and with their boats blockade the passage of military ships and trade to the Jewish colony. Yeah, maybe the Israeli intelligence and Spanish intelligence that are definitely were around all my travel in Spain did hear these comments. Maybe they also saw some of the posts that I made that are in reference to this. But at that point, in those posts that I made online, I didn't mention that both sides of the Gibraltar Straits are actually Spanish territorial waters, which is the root of the problem of those who call themselves activists that are getting on boats and going all the way to Gaza when they can, without breaking any law, line up a few hundred boats on both sides from Ceuta to mainland Spanish territory and blockade as they wish the passage of weapons and trade to the Jewish colony.
On this question of the purchase of weapons by Spain, I'm just trying to put up on, sorry, I don't know why that happened. Here we go. This is an article published in February of this year, and you'll see Pedro Sanchez there. And Spain vows to stop buying Israeli weapon systems despite controversial New Deal. Spain's government has said, I'm quoting the article, that it is continuing to work towards zero technological dependence on Israel, despite currently considering the purchase of an alternative European defense system partly owned by Israel. So I think your criticism is well taken. Apparently, the outspoken President Sanchez is more hot air than action. But at least by the standards of Europe, his rhetoric has been reasonable. He certainly has not hesitated to describe what Israel is doing as a genocide, but at the end of the day, it is actions that matter. Now, to return to what happened, Laith, so what do you think is going on here? Who do you think is behind this? Because it does look very much like it was orchestrated. I mean, we've all seen the videos of dozens of young men in large trucks, and they're suddenly let off, stopped near some point that's not far from the border of Ceuta, and there's police officers standing there watching them. There are even indications that they were directed towards Ceuta. But in any case, who do you think is behind this, and what do you think their motivation is?
Look, this has happened multiple times over the last decade, and it was always done intentionally, without a doubt, by the Moroccan regime. And it was always in relations to Spain's foreign policies. In previous situations where thousands of Moroccan citizens were dumped on the border, like that of Ceuta, it was about Spain making deals of purchasing gas from Algeria, or Spain actually giving medical care to the head of the Polisario, the Sahrawi, the Western Sahara Liberation Front. So this has happened already before. So we see the pattern. It's proven before. There's no doubt about it that the Moroccan government intentionally dropped all these former prisoners. By the way, just 24, 48 hours before this incident, the King of Morocco declared amnesty to 40,000 petty thieves and petty criminals, right? And then and then we saw within those 24, 48 hours that these same criminals were dumped on the border of Ceuta and then flooded the streets and looted the stores and scared the people and then returned. So this is undoubtedly a organized event by the Moroccan regime. Now, since we look at the previous incidents like this, And we see that they are related directly to punishing Spain for one of its foreign policies. What foreign policy did Spain right now enact that pisses off the Moroccan regime? There's nothing related to the Polisario. There's nothing related to Algeria. There's no problems between the Spanish government and the Moroccan government on any file. And there's not even any bad wars being mentioned by the Spanish government about Morocco. So the only logical thing that we can see is that as a vassal, as a collaborationist regime, as a regime that is totally reliant on Israeli favor and American favor, that somehow the Zionist regime ordered the Moroccan king to do what he did as a punishment for Pedro Sanchez taking those positions that are very light and just words about Palestine, because they can't even accept someone who is still spending the money of the state of Spain on Israeli weapons, who's still exporting Spanish trains to build the train tracks to the colonies in the West Bank, and still exporting the largest amount of white phosphorus to arm Israel to commit the genocide and war crimes in Lebanon. It is not allowed for him to even give lip service to the population of Spain, who overwhelmingly are against the genocide and the wars that are happening.
Now, when this happened, when these migrants flooded into the enclave, 22 EU states called for an emergency meeting. They tended to be the most pro-Israel states. For example, the repulsive, extremely Zionist government of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, called for the emergency meeting. And that emergency meeting just took place this afternoon. Now, it's not entirely clear what happened there, but there is an article in The Guardian which says that following this meeting, the EU's top official on migration has criticized Spain's plan to regularize undocumented migrants as not a good signal for Europe after an emergency meeting intended to draw a line under divisions on the Ceuta crisis. Magnus Brunner, the European Commissioner for Migration, said that while the EU could not currently see a direct link between events in Ceuta and Spain's regularization plan, the policy was definitely not a good signal for the rest of Europe. It was a rare note of discord as the EU sought to move on from an acrimonious row caused after tens of thousands of migrants arrived and mostly left the tiny Spanish territory in North Africa. EU Interior Ministers held a hastily arranged video conference today intended to learn lessons from the politically divisive Ceuta crisis. Now, I have to tell you, Laith, when I heard about this call for an emergency meeting, I was suspicious that there was some kind of a plot at work here to justify European control, in other words, Brussels control over the Strait of Gibraltar. That somehow, they have this organization, Frontex, which they've set up, which basically commits barbaric acts against migrants trying to enter Southern Europe from Northern Africa. I don't know what I've seen. No clear indication that that is a plot or a plan that is emerging from this this emergency meeting that took place. It's not clear that anything is going to come out of this meeting. What do you make of this meeting, and what do you think the EU's? I'm talking here about the elite in Brussels. What do you think they're going to try to accomplish as a result of this manufactured crisis?
Well, definitely, you're right. It's manufactured, and when we look at it, the fact that practically most of these, those who crossed the border went back at order again by the Moroccan regime, and you realize that obviously there was a pre-planned and pre-organized reaction, right? So this overwhelmingly fast reaction from the whole Goliath of the EU that takes weeks to move and so forth, to suddenly be jumping into action, to all be lined up to make statements about something that didn't even exist, that these migrants entered and left. So why are you making a crisis about it? So, except that it is already prepared. This crisis is already made up. And I think, of course, another part of why it's definitely made up is because all of these EU countries know that 10,000 migrants died trying to cross into Spain just last year, partially because, of course, of the Spanish Navy and Coast Guard sinking those ships. There's a migrant genocide happening. And of course, those numbers are probably even higher when we talk about the waters of Greece and Cyprus and Italy. Okay, so it's a made-up crisis there, where you have a compliant government in the Kingdom of Spain. And by the way, it is a kingdom also, and it is a monarchy, a monarch that was brought in to stop democracy from happening in Spain after the death of the dictator Franco. Okay, who stayed till the end of the 70s, protected by NATO and the United States. Okay, so here is a compliant regime that is, helping in the killing of 10,000 migrants a year, being chastiated for a few migrants that stayed in a one-day event that was manufactured. And so what do we understand from this? Especially, by the way, when I was in Spain, Pedro Sanchez's wife is now stuck in a huge crisis, scandal about money and the contracts and so forth, that was also, it seems like, exploded out of nowhere. So you can see how even that Sanchez is compliant and he's just a talker, that is enough to create multiple crises in Spain and in the economy of Spain and in the reputation of Spain, in order to make even those silly comments coming from Sanchez to stop.
I just want to, before we move on from this whole subject, I want to just offer a personal reflection here, Laith, because I know that in Europe nowadays, I'm sure you're well aware of this, that there's not a lot of sympathy for migrants. There is certainly some segment of the population remains sympathetic towards migrants, but my lifetime, I've never seen such a high level of anti-migrant sentiment. And I want to just offer this reflection that, my mother and father came to Canada from Greece in the 1950s, and they were migrants. I feel very strongly about this issue because I myself am the child of immigrants, and my parents did not want to leave Greece. They left Greece because Greece lay in smoking ruins, and it lay in smoking ruins because of imperialism. First, it was the Germans and their brutal, sadistic occupation of Greece, which was one of the worst occupations that any European country had to endure. And then when they were expelled, the political faction that was best positioned to take power were the communists, because they had put up the stiffest resistance to the Nazis by a wide margin. So Churchill, who struck a deal with Stalin to basically have Greece within the British sphere of influence, fomented a civil war. He put together a motley collection of Nazi collaborators and monarchists and right-wing Republicans, and they fought a brutal civil war against the communists, and the communists ultimately were defeated. And so it was at that point in time, my parents, who were teenagers, made a very difficult decision to leave, and they never failed to stress to me as I was growing up that this decision was forced upon them. And I think this is very true of the great majority of migrants. They don't want to leave their homes, but they are forced to leave. They feel compelled to leave to seek a decent life because of what Western governments are doing to their own societies and to their own economies. And so my message to all those people out there in Europe who aren't feeling a lot of sympathy nowadays for migrants, if that's the position you're going to take, it is incumbent upon you to stop the monstrosities that your governments are perpetrating in the non-Western world, particularly in Africa and West Asia, where a great many of these migrants are coming from. I suspect that most of them don't want to leave their homes, but they go because the conditions being created there by Western powers, with the acquiescence of the vast majority of Westerners, it has to be said, are inhumane. So that's my own reflection. I invite you, if you have anything you want to add before we move on to our next subject, Laith, please feel free to chime in.
Well, all of this anti-migrant, anti-immigrant hysteria that has been whipped in the imperialist core in Europe and North America specifically has been, the fire of it has been lit by the Jewish supremacist Zionists. And not only, people saw over the last few months and, statements from the Zionists saying that we've lost the propaganda game. The only thing we can do is create hate against Muslims, right? Well, this is in that same light. The Zionists want to make sure that specifically Arabic and Muslim immigrants in the West are never integrated. They are so scared since the early 2000s when in practically every country in the West now the second religion is Islam. Okay, there's more Muslims, except in the United States, which had a discriminatory immigration policy blocking specifically Muslims and Arabs from entering the country as regular immigrants, and that's why the United States has the lowest percentage of Arabic and Muslim peoples. So I am personally those who are nationalists in Western countries and don't want immigrants there, as you're saying, as they're saying, you are right that they should make sure their governments stop lighting fires in the countries where immigrants are coming from. Nobody wants to come to the cold, gloomy weather of the United Kingdom or the frozen tundra of Canada when they can be in Mediterranean beach in Eastern Mediterranean eating nice food all year long. Believe me, nobody wants to do that. The other thing is that there's another solution. I and all Palestinians would trade all the Jewish colonists on the land of Palestine for every Arab and Muslim in all of Europe and America. Tens of millions more than the Jews that are on our land. We'll take them. I tell you, we will be gaining all of the brain drain that has been done for our region here for the last 60, 80 years, where all the middle class and all the educated people were forced out. They'll come back here and build our country. And then let Europe and North America deal with the pedophile, cannibal population that they threw us on, that they love so much. They're willing to burn all of Europe and all the rights of the citizens of Europe, free speech and free association and political and media rights and so on, all to protect the Jewish colony. We'll take it, protect it there.
Just so your reference to pedophilia, we did a report recently where we talked about an absolutely shocking scandal within Israel about dozens of influential members of Israeli society committing the most heinous acts: torture, rape, imprisonment, slavery, even of their own children. It's absolutely astonishing. And if you are interested in the details, as difficult as they are to assimilate, I suggest you look up that report on Reason to Resist. So let's move then to Lebanon, Laith. And I want to start with a very, very disturbing image of a massive explosion near Beaufort Castle, which is a castle in the south of Lebanon, a strategic point and of great historical importance. And you and I were there, I think, on two occasions. On one occasion, we actually witnessed, purely by chance, an attack by the resistance, the Lebanese resistance, on his Israeli military base. I believe it was Metula. But this video raises a serious question about whether the genocidal maniacs have destroyed Beaufort Castle. So here's what. So you'll see Lebanon's national center. So the explosion created ground waves, 3.8, I believe, on the Richter scale, and that is the Crusader era Beaufort in that image there. It's been occupied by the genocidal Israeli forces since, what was it, May 31st, I believe. In any case, Laith, what do we know about the fate of Beaufort Castle?
Well, nobody has been able to inspect the castle. It's behind enemy lines right now. But what we understand is that the Israelis filled caves under the castle. You remember when you stand on the castle, you're on the cliff looking down on the top of this mountain, looking down to the Litani River bed, and they blew up these caves under the castle. So what the explosion is definitely huge. It also is deep, so we don't know how much of the topsoil and the bedrock on top of the mountain were damaged. It's nobody's going to get there, obviously, until the Zionists allow them. The United Nations is doing nothing. We could have sent the UNIFIL to check on this historic site. But it's also, part of a psychological warfare, right? It's the Israelis conducting this huge explosion, packing it with ammonium nitrates. A few hours ago or yesterday, there was the UNIFIL found all these ammonium nitrates stash, and now we know that the Israelis, it's Israeli, by the way, and most probably that they used such amount of explosives in the area under the Beaufort Castle. I wish there's someone that can go there. Definitely the journalists can't, and the only ones they can, I think, are the UNIFIL, and I don't think they're going to do their duties.
Laith, what is the current status of the combat in Lebanon? Because I've seen virtually no reports of military operations being conducted by the resistance against the genocidal maniacs, but I've seen plenty of reports of these Israeli forces firing on various targets in South Lebanon with artillery. And of course, there are plenty of reports of explosions, of entire villages being laid, level to the ground. So they're committing, effectively ethnic cleansing and genocide. It is ongoing in South Lebanon. They are continuing to attack and kill people in South Lebanon, but the resistance seems to be quite restrained at this point in time. Are they mounting any military operations, and if not, why?
They are mounting military operations, not at the intensity of the full-scale confrontation before the quote-unquote ceasefire. But Israelis even a few days ago admitted that one of their engineering corps with bulldozers and excavators were attacked by FPVs, blown up. Our own team on the ground in the south, in the quote-unquote experimental zone in Ceuta al-Gharbiyya, where the Israelis withdrew, filmed a confrontation between Hezbollah and the occupation forces. Tanks were hit, soldiers were filmed even being brought out on stretchers. This is just 4 or 5 days ago. Every day there is gunfire heard on all the front lines, not only from the Israelis, combing the front line with heavy machine guns or firing these tank shells, but also from Hezbollah fighters firing back. Both sides are keeping the news very light about these confrontations. But even a few days after the destruction of those engineering vehicles, there was an attempt by the Israelis to advance again towards Ali Tahir Hill, and they were, fell into an ambush with IEDs and had to withdraw and pull out their injured. So the war is on a very low intensity. The reason is because we have regional, dimensions to this war, and we have also the internal dimensions in the country. The issue of the president and the prime minister negotiating with the enemy, the outing of this billionaire al-Sahnawi, with that photo sitting with Netanyahu in a dinner table in Washington, D.C. when Netanyahu was visiting last week. Al-Sahnawi owns a huge bank in the country and finances much of the anti-resistance media. So all of these things are, helping or forcing Hezbollah to slow down the battle on the ground while dealing with the complications of the regional perspective and the local.
So we had Vanessa Beeley on our program recently. She's spent a lot of time in Syria, and she has been reporting, and we talked about this when I interviewed her, that the terrorist vassal in Damascus, al-Jolani, his mercenaries have been massing near the Lebanese border. And although he claims not to be interested in militarily intervening in Lebanon, there's good reason to believe that he'll do just that. And Trump has made some noises suggesting that he's game, al-Jolani, although he hasn't come out and said that. And at the same time, I've seen and heard reports that the resistance in Iraq is threatening al-Jolani, that if he sends his mercenaries into Lebanon, they will attack Syria. What is your read of all of this? What do you think al-Jolani's intentions are? And do you think that part of the reason why the Lebanese resistance is showing restraint is because they're having to deal with the possibility that there is going to be an influx of hostile forces from Syria into Lebanon?
I don't think Hezbollah's actions are kind of limited right now with this talk about al-Jolani invading Lebanon. In fact, I think the whole story is just using al-Jolani as a scarecrow, specifically against the Lebanese government and the Lebanese upper class, to get them to sign on whatever Israel wants. Al-Jolani's death squads are in shambles. Much of their international mercenaries have been extracted by Turkey and sent onto the front lines in Central Africa, Sahara region, and the Horn. And definitely, if he commits such a stupid thing, he will face huge resistance in Lebanon, plus, of course, what you mentioned from Iraq. I want to note here that Hezbollah has different structures that are kind of laid out geographically. The battalions that are on the front lines in the north and or in the Qalamun Mountains in the east are not the same ones that are in the south that are defending the border with Palestine. So it's not like Hezbollah has moved all its forces to the south. No. It has stationary forces around the country, each battalion knowing what it does. And there's the reserves that get moved whenever you need extra fighters somewhere else, right? So, and from the experience of the Red Bandanas, the elite units of the HDS in the early 2025, when they attempted to invade the north of Lebanon, and how they were wiped off the map by just the regular people of the north of Lebanon, the clans, without the help of even Hezbollah. I tell you, there's nothing that's going to come out of Syria. That this is just, again, a scarecrow to pressure the upper class and the upper middle class of Lebanon to kind of sway them into surrender with the Zionists.
So meanwhile, the government of Noam Shalom, also known as Nawaf Salam, is continuing to negotiate with the child-murdering Israeli entity. I think they're now into the 7th round of negotiations. And he put out a rather irate post on X today. I don't know if you've seen it, Laith, but this is translated from Arabic. I'll just read the first 3 paragraphs. Today, someone pays us a visit who accuses the political authority of, quote, having been a supporter of Israel instead of supporting Lebanon's sovereignty, close quote, then calls for dialogue and unity as if the Lebanese have no memory. The truth is that the greatest support for Israel was provided by the one who distinguished himself by dragging Lebanon into futile support war adventures, thereby giving it pretext to aggress against our country, trample its sovereignty, destroy its cities and villages, kill its sons, and displace them by the hundreds of thousands. The one who distinguished himself with the decision of war and seeks to continue by usurping the state's decision, tying Lebanon to external calculations and axes, ignoring the interests of his own environment and the Lebanese in general, has no right to hand out certificates in patriotism, let alone in sovereignty. So obviously, Noam Shalom is bristling at any suggestion that he's not a Lebanese patriot. What is he talking about? Who is the one who distinguished himself? And what is your read of this tirade?
Well, today was the commemoration of the explosion in port of Beirut, and Sayyid Naim al-Qasim spoke in the morning. So this is Nawaf Salam talking about Naim al-Qasim and his speech to the nation without mentioning his name, right? So he's like saying someone who visited us today, as if Naim al-Qasim is not in Lebanon, but he's visited the nation of the Lebanese people. And he's blaming, of course, Hezbollah for the destruction of the country instead of the criminal genocidal regime that he is negotiating with. And of course, it seems like Nawaf Shalom was, kind of hurt badly by the words of, Sheikh Naim al-Qasim today, that he had to write that diatribe that is really actually, even when you read it in Arabic, by the way, you are having problems reading it in English. Reading it in Arabic is even more ridiculous because this man is unable to speak proper Arabic. So you could imagine him trying to compete with the oration power of Sheikh Naim al-Qasim, which speaks perfect Arabic and knows how to deliver the story and even knows how to humiliate his opponent, not in a childish way as this. This is propaganda from the 1920s, almost. Like, this is how bad it is. It's not in the 2020s, it's 1920s. And everything that Nawaf Salam repeated as accusations against Hezbollah has been kind of regurgitated over and over for decades, that it lost any meaning. Even from a propaganda point of view, it cannot affect the population that has lived the ethnic cleansing in the south of Lebanon.
Now, a few months ago on Mario Nafal's show, I accepted an invitation to debate that war criminal Jonathan Conricus, used to be spokesperson for the Israeli military. And right out of the gate, Mario challenged me on this notion that the Lebanese resistance was acting in self-defense when the hostilities began between the resistance and Israel in October of 2023. And he said that what happened at that time was that the Lebanese resistance attacked Israeli forces without justification. Now, I had a response for that. I'm curious, what is your response to that? Because this seems to be a sentiment that is being echoed by Nawaf Salam in this tirade.
There was so many points, villages in South Lebanon that were occupied by the Israelis prior to October 7th and Al-Aqsa flood. And Hezbollah and the Lebanese people have the right to fight for the liberation of that land. And until the Israelis leave those lands, and these are just the villages that is not contested where they fell in 1942 when the state of Lebanon were created. There's another 7, 8 Lebanese villages behind that 1942 line that were ethnically cleansed completely in 1948. So no, Hezbollah, without the needing to the justification of defending the Palestinian people from the crime of genocide, has the right to attack this Jewish colony until it exits all Lebanese territory that is occupied. So, and of course, there is the international law, moral duty, and religious duty, and human duty, and just plain dignity duty to come to the aid of a population besieged and starved and living genocide. So Mario Naufal or not Mario Naufal, they can go all and drink the sea, as we say in Arabic.
Yeah, the last comment I'll offer on this is that even if the Lebanese Prime Minister were right, and I strenuously disagree, that the Lebanese resistance didn't have a justification for attacking these child-murdering Israeli soldiers, even if he's right about that, how could you possibly say that the Lebanese resistance is more blameworthy than the actual perpetrators of this genocide in Lebanon? I mean, even if they had some justification for attacking the resistance, there's no conceivable justification the Israelis had for destroying entire villages, murdering journalists, emergency workers, showering the populace with white phosphorus, and on and on and on, destroying mosques. You and I visited one. We did a report from a completely demolished mosque, I think in Ceuta. They're also killing Lebanese army officers who, even though the Lebanese army is doing absolutely nothing to defend the country. So it just boggles my mind, Laith, that even if he's convinced that the Lebanese resistance had no justification, how could he possibly see Israel as being less blameworthy than the resistance? It's astonishing to me. I mean, do you think this man is just ideologically aligned with Zionism? Do you think he's corrupt? What explains this extraordinary deference to Israel in Washington?
Nawaf Salam has been a intelligence asset since the 1970s and his university days, when he infiltrated Palestinian groups in the university, the American University of Beirut, and pretended to be pro-Palestinian and so forth. So people should check out his youth years that are 180 degrees in terms of its public positionality than what it is now. But truly, once you're addicted to the money of the Zionists and the empire, and the attention that the Zionists can offer you, the fabricated attention on the platforms that are owned by the empire, that take somebody from the garbage like Nawaf Salam and make him into a prime minister, or give him all of these interviews and media space, that's hard to break. And you add to it when somebody is a eunuch, okay, and has no dignity or a favor for protecting his own, including his own children and his own family and his own village and his own country. Of course, these things combine together to give us someone of the minute stature of Nawaf Salam.
All right. Well, brother, great always speaking with you, and please stay safe in Lebanon, even though things are not quite as dangerous as they were before. Every day I know you're on the field reporting there's risk, and we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. Talk to you soon.
Before you go, why don't you tell people where they can find the work of Free Palestine TV?
Yes, you can go to our website, freepalestine.video. People can donate there. We're 100% dependent on the generosity of our viewers. And from there, you can find all our social media networks links. Freepalestine.video is the website again. And when you put in the search Free Palestine TV on any of the social media platforms, you'll find us. We have also right now a new shop. We're selling some of those, merchandise, hats, and so forth. If people want to, purchase that, wear it around, spread the word, that'd be great. As I mentioned, we just released a documentary about, by the way, Madrid and the history of Madrid. And for all those pure nationalists in Spain, they must be boiling every time they think about the history of Madrid being the only European capital that was built from scratch by the Arab Muslims. Okay.
Mhm.
So you could think about all those fascists in Spain that love Madrid as their home base, and they're sitting in an Arabic city, not a city that was occupied by the Arabs. Okay.
Right.
And the other thing that another documentary that's coming out is about Cadiz. It's also in what is now Spain, and Cadiz is the oldest and first city ever built in Europe, and that was built by the Phoenician Canaanites 6,000 years ago, and its name Cadiz means Qudus, Jerusalem.
Right.
Okay, the original Jerusalem. Okay, so those documentaries are coming out. Please watch them. Of course, all the reporting from the field that is amazing being done now by Ali Mazloum, an amazing youth that we've trained and has been doing great work from the ground.
Yeah. By the way, I was in Cadiz a few years ago, and it's one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. It's spectacularly beautiful. In any event, we're signing off today from Beirut, Lebanon, and Montreal, Canada for Reason to Resist.